Hi, and welcome to Sarah and Mike's Best Picture Podcast. I'm Michael Cole, and this is episode number 18. This week we're going to be talking about the film Casablanca, which came out in 1942. The film starred Humphrey Bogart, Ingrid Bergman, Paul Henreid, and Claude Rains, and it was directed by Michael Curtiz. It won Academy Awards for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Writing Screenplay. It was also nominated for Best Actor in a Leading Role for Humphrey Bogart, Best Actor in a Supporting Role for Claude Rains, Best Cinematography Black and White, Best Film Editing, and Best Music Scoring of a Dramatic or Comedy Picture. It beat out for Best Picture For Whom the Bell Tolls, Heaven Can Wait, In Which We Serve, Madame Curie, The Human Comedy, The More the Merrier, The Oxbow Incident, The Song of Bernadette, and Watch on the Rhine. With me, as always, is my co-host and wife, Sarah.
How's it going?
So what did you think of Casablanca?
I liked it.
Yeah.
It obviously felt really different, and I thought it was interesting. Probably the first full film.
So I had seen Casablanca 2 or 3 times before this, but this was your first time watching it, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know some of the really iconic
lines and stuff.
Yeah, and I knew like most of the premise, and I definitely knew the ending.
Right.
But yeah.
You knew the ending shot, or you knew how the film ended?
I knew like what the ending was.
Oh, really? That's cool. What would you categorize? What genre would you put this movie into? Because the reason
it almost felt not like heist, but like
kind of noir-y,
like twists, and there's like a huge plot twist.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is super common for romantic comedies. It wasn't like, it was a little bit like, is it gonna happen? Is it not gonna happen?
Right.
But it was, it had a different feel to it. And I didn't really know what happened with her husband. That part, I didn't know until the end. And that definitely added some interest to the movie. I was thinking it was going to be a little more dramatic than it was, like with what happened to him. Like, how he just like appeared back. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I thought there was going to be like something more to it, or like, like he was always there and she was hiding it, or I don't know, like.
Yeah, well, some of the things I read were that, and this isn't so much about him, but it could apply to that, I guess, is that so it was a play, and then I think it was a play that was like unproduced, and then immediately went to film. I think that's what I read. But because it was a play, there was like a totally different censor standard for it, so they changed lines and changed things to make it covered by the censors. Like, for example, Claude Rains plays a kind of a corrupt French general that's in charge of the city of Casablanca, which is in Morocco. And he says to Rick, played by Humphrey Bogart, some line about, you like money, I like girls, or something. And the original line was, you enjoy money, I enjoy girls. And they changed it because it's suggestiveness.
I forgot about that part.
So, like, there was all this, and so there was they still get away with being fairly implicit in what they show. Like, it does not take much imagination. Like, there's a scene in which a young woman who's not old enough to be in the lounge or the cafe or the nightclub or whatever it is, but I think she says she's 18, So it may be that they had to be 21. I don't know what the rules were. They don't really go into that. But she goes in and talks to Rick, which is, like I said, Humphrey Bogart's character. And she's trying to secure... All these people in Casablanca are most of them are refugees from Europe, the parts that have been taken over by Nazis and occupied by Nazis. And so they are there either in hiding or in transit trying to get to Lisbon because Lisbon can get them to America. And so in Casablanca, you get all these people who are trying to smooth over the right politicians and the right people to get themselves out of Casablanca to Lisbon to America. So this girl goes to Rick and says, the general, which is Claude Rains' character, I'm forgetting the name, he promised me that he could get my husband and I safe passage. Should I trust him? Will he do what he says? And Rick says he's never not done it, or something along those lines. Like he's always kept his word. And then she says, "Let me ask you one more question. Do you think that a wife can be forgiven for doing something terrible if it's for a good reason?" And it becomes really clear that basically, like, she's got to sleep with him if she wants her and her husband to get out of... They're from Bulgaria, and to get out of, Casablanca to America where they'll be safe, this 18-year-old girl has to sleep with a guy that's going to be 50. And so, like, that's pretty... It's not really, like... I wouldn't say that... They don't come out and say, I have to sleep with him, but at the same time, there isn't really any... there's no other way that can be taken, basically. Like,
yeah.
One of the things I really liked, so I didn't, it's been a while since I've seen this, and one of the things that I really liked about this movie was Rick is, again, kind of like the same way that Rhett Butler is, but like way more so. He's like that guy that you kind of think is a bad guy at first, or like not a bad guy like the antagonist, but he's like a anti-hero at first, and you think that, oh, we're gonna go along for the ride with him, but he's kind of a scumbag. You assume that at the beginning based on like little things, and then you realize, oh no, he's a pretty good dude who just is like cold or has this like this front up, and he's, to me, after
he's not completely good.
And what does he do that's not good?
Rick or the general?
Rick. The general, I think we can agree.
Yeah.
Rick's big thing is that he doesn't he won't commit to the girl that he's got staying, in the other hotel or whatever, but he's like, he's got a casual fling going on. That's the big, like, scumbag thing he does. Like, that's the worst thing he does in the movie, I believe.
Yeah.
But, like, Rick, I was going to say is I think that Rick is as far as I can, I'm searching my brain, and as far as I can remember, of every movie I've ever seen, he's probably one of if not the single best version of this, like, Han Solo kind of, like, bad boy who's really great dude.
Yeah. I kind of think the husband, though, is good, too. Like,
the husband's great. The husband is great.
Yeah, no,
but the husband seems like a good guy. The thing with the husband is that...
But I kept thinking, like, they're gonna reveal something to, like, make it okay that she does love Rick. You know? Like, they usually do that in those
I'm not sure if you
movies.
missed this or not, but there's this scene in which...
Like, I thought something was going to come out, like, while he was a spy or whatever. Like...
Right. Well, there's this scene in which the husband and Rick are talking in the club after, Ilsa's upstairs. Ilsa is Ingrid Bergman's character. Paul Henreid is her husband. And so there's a scene where she she's upstairs because she was trying to get there's a couple of signed visas or papers that will get two people out of the country. They just need to, put their own names in them, basically, and they're like blank checks for that. And so that's kind of like the MacGuffin of the movie. But Rick and Victor Laszlo, which is kind of one of the coolest names. Rick Blaine and Victor Laszlo are like amazing names. They're talking at the bar after it's emptied, and it's just the two of them, and Victor basically says, "I assume you had some kind of relationship with my wife in France. No one is to be blamed because she thought I was dead because I was in hiding or injured or whatever. So you didn't know she had a husband. She thought her husband was dead, and I obviously did nothing wrong. So the three of us did nothing wrong. No one is to be blamed." And he kind of sums, and I don't remember the exact way he words the line, but he sums it up in that case of like, everybody's right of those three. Not of everybody, but you've got these two opposing forces, and they're both right. And they both have like the claim, and that's why when she's torn with what shouldn't be really any sense of guilt. And that's a really cool dynamic that I don't remember seeing in too many other movies, other than the Brady Bunch 2, a Very Brady sequel. I don't remember many other movies where you get, characters that are in conflict with each other, and both sides, as far as you can tell, are completely morally correct. And it shows, and the cool thing about that is while it doesn't happen particularly like all the time, it happens relatively often in real life, is that like, you want something or you need something and I want something and I need something, and they're directly in opposition to each other, but that doesn't make you bad and me good or vice versa. And that was something that was really, I think that was a nuance that even in even 75 years after this movie was made, I think that nuance is rare in movies, in storytelling in general. It's rare in understanding. Like most people couldn't do in Victor's situation what Victor does and said, nobody here is at fault. Most people would be like, I don't care if you thought not that I was dead. You shouldn't have, like most people would just be irrational. But Victor isn't. And and so I think eventually Rick sees that. Rick goes, okay, she didn't do it in the greatest way when she like left me to go back to her husband, but she was torn, and there was this really legitimate reason for being torn. Mm-hmm. Sorry, we're shooting. We're recording after our son has gone to sleep, and it takes a little while. And a lot of times at this point in the night, my throat starts to, like, my voice starts to get a little raspy, and no matter how many drinks I have, to like try to like work through it, but it's fine. We're gonna continue. What was your favorite part of the movie?
Probably, the scene like right before they're gonna go off on the plane.
Yeah.
When you find out that Rick is like, like quickly like turning the tables to like, save them and not himself, and
right. I like that scene a lot.
And he escapes like, the higher up from the general and all that. That was really cool.
Yeah. So a piece of trivia. Back in the early to mid 2000s, there was Madonna wanted to remake Casablanca with her as the Ingrid Bergman character and Ashton Kutcher as Rick. the studio basically told her no, told her this is an untouchable thing.
Yeah.
I mean, Madonna. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Madonna has a bad track record with movies. Like most of her movies are like considered awful.
Yeah.
So like it's not even like you had George Clooney and I don't know whoever's really respected. That's you know like Julia Roberts or whatever. Instead, it's just like, I mean, I actually think Ashton Kutcher's not a bad actor, but considering him to replace Humphrey Bogart and Madonna to replace, it just is, that's such a weird idea. And I saw that in the trivia and I was like, thank God that didn't happen. There's been two Casablanca TV shows, like spin-offs, or one was a prequel, one was a spin-off, and they were TV shows. They didn't do particularly well, but like, I also don't know who any of the people in them were. So, like, it's not, the only reason I know that is because it showed up in the trivia. Whereas if Madonna had made one, we would all know about it, and it would just kind of taint.
Yeah. I was just reading that actually 3 of the characters had like close ties to Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
And the waiter Karl was a Jewish Hungarian who fled Germany.
Yeah.
And he lost his 3 sisters to a concentration camp. And Helmut Dantin, who was playing the Bulgarian Russian roulette player, he spent time in a concentration camp and he left Europe after being freed. So that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, and the director even, there was someone else here too, I think. The director was a Hungarian Jewish immigrant who had arrived in the U.S. in 1926, but some of his family were refugees from Nazi Europe.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of people on set.
Yeah, that had like close ties. Like.
Yeah. Apparently, there's a scene in the movie where they sing a German song, "Watch on the Rhine," which is a World War I song because they couldn't get the rights to actual Nazi songs. Because there was a copyright on them. Basically, Germany could have made it so that they weren't able to show the movie in like countries that Germany wasn't at war with. Basically, would have had to like enforce it. So they went with this other technically not accurate one, and basically they sing 2 different songs, and it's like the Nazis and all the people that are there trying to get out, because the Nazis are there but they're not occupying the space. They're there looking for a few people, but they don't necessarily have power in Casablanca at this time. So they have these 2 opposing songs. One is Marseille, which is that's the place in France. Why the fuck did that happen? My ringer's off. And so during that scene when they were singing and the people are singing the Marseille song, Marseillaise. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce that. It could be Marseille, and I'm just saying it wrong. During that scene, you see characters crying, and that they were actually crying in that scene because so many of them. There's only 3 actors on set who were actually Americans. Everybody else was foreign-born, and a lot of them were, like you said, affected, whether it be from they knew people or they were there or whatever. And so there was a lot of people actually crying during that scene, and people who were actually they had stake in the fight. What did you think of Ingrid Bergman's performance in this?
I thought she did really well.
Yeah, I thought she did amazing.
Yeah.
The reason I ask is, some of the trivia that I read stated that a couple of things that really make her performance even more impressive. One is she was still new to English. She hadn't really mastered English when they made the movie.
Oh.
So like, you keep that in mind when you're like watching it. And then the other thing is some of the scenes when they're shooting the flashback stuff that's supposed to be in Paris, in the hotels or whatever, and they're talking and doing all the different scenes with the montage of them being in love, basically her and Rick. Those scenes were shot before the script was finished, and even the director didn't know exactly how it was going to happen, like it was going to play out, because those were the scenes shot first. And so she was like, "Do I love him? Am I going to end up with him? How and how am I going to play this?" And the director basically told her to try to play it as ambiguous as possible because he didn't know how the script was going to end. And so, and and she does this. I mean, if you watch her eyes in this movie, she acts so much with her face.
Yeah.
I mean, her speech is perfect. You wouldn't know if you didn't read that she had any trouble with English, but the performance in her face and in her eyes, like the movements and the like little like nervous twitches, you can see that like she is in this place of, and maybe it's because she was not sure how to play it and it was a different thing, but it appears like she's thinking about her husband and not knowing if he's alive. And like all of it kind of is in there if you like watch her eyes.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing. She was nominated for an Oscar this year, but not for this movie. And so it's kind of amazing that she wasn't nominated for this movie. She was nominated for Whom the Bell Tolls, which is a Hemingway book.
Yeah.
That was turned into a movie. But the performance in this is so incredible that I can't even imagine how good that performance must be if she was nominated for that instead.
Yeah, that's true.
So this movie is considered to be one of I've heard some people refer to it as the single best screenplay ever written, and I've also heard other people. I think it's been consistently up at the top on stuff like the IMDb top 250, and I think it was number 3 on the AFI list. So it's like a lot. It's like it's a top 5 kind of movie of all time. So it's interesting that it won 3 Oscars, and you got Humphrey Bogart gives, I think, an incredible performance. The Victor Laszlo guy, I get why he didn't get nominated, but he gives an incredible performance. Claude Rains does. She does. Ingrid Bergman gives one. It's kind of amazing that it didn't get nominated for more, being that it's arguably one of the best films ever made. One of the pieces of trivia that I also thought was interesting, given that it's, like I said, it's been, a lot of people have called it the best screenplay ever written, is in the 80s, a version of the script went out with the original title, which was Everybody's Happy at Rick's, or Everybody Drinks at Rick's,
or
something.
I saw that.
And they passed
Everybody Comes to Rick's.
Everybody Comes to Rick's. And they passed out the script with that title on it, didn't tell people what it was, and asked them to like give feedback, and people and basically I think they gave the script as the movie was. So I don't think it was like an unedited version. I think from what I read, it looked like they transcribed the movie into script format, put the original title on so that it wasn't like Casablanca. And then they went and gave it out, and like most people, they said that most people didn't know what it was, and most people thought it was too wordy, and not that it didn't have enough action. It was too wordy, and it's kind of just amazing, like to show. I mean, I would assume that they were giving it out to people who read screenplays, because if you just handed a screenplay to the average person on the street, they're not going to really know how to translate that in their head, right? But, they can get the basic concept, but they're not going to know how things translate versus, audio and visual and dialogue and action and everything else. It's it's going to be a very difficult process. But if they were handing it out, I would assume they handed it out to people who read scripts for them to be like, no, this isn't particularly a good script. It's kind of amazing. It means that, sometimes I think that, they say that you can't make a good movie from a bad script, but you can make a bad movie from a good script. But I think that it shows that people don't really have a good idea what a good script is. They just, until the movie's made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
I definitely think you could take a good script and make it into a bad movie.
Yeah.
I think it all has to come together as one piece. I think they're equal.
Yeah, I mean,
equal parts. I mean, there are some movies that are just way more visual and less needs to be said because of that. I think you could make this movie. This one, this movie could be made very poorly. All you have to do is make it exactly the same way, but replace it with Ashton Kutcher and Madonna. Yeah,
and I think you would have a bad movie.
Yeah.
And that's not even to say that they're not bad. On this,
there's a lot of movement with the camera, right. In a good way.
Yeah, there was a lot more.
I think one of my favorite places, which is funny, and I think obviously it's on purpose, was Rick's Cafe. From the first moment you're in there with I think he's a jazz singer, right?
Yeah.
The jazz singer and all that, it's very lively.
Sam, you mean?
Yeah,
I think that's considered jazz. I don't know.
I think it's jazz. I mean.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
The 40s, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
Jazz was popular in the 30s and 40s.
I think 20s, 30s, and 40s. But yeah. Doesn't matter. We're not music people, obviously. We don't know much about it. We know the very basics. I'm pretty sure it was jazz, but somebody could correct us and be like, it was actually this subset.
Yeah.
As far as we're concerned, it was jazz.
Big swing bands were huge in the 40s too, but yeah. But yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's jazz piano.
Yeah.
What he was doing. And
yeah.
you were really drawn into that from the start. And
right.
I think just from that scene, I think Everyone Comes to Rick's is, you could have made that the title.
Yeah.
That's the, one of the most, parts of the movie that gives you the most feeling, I think, is feeling for these people that are trying to flee, and it's really cool. I mean, it's it's cool that they did that,
Yeah. To me, the Rick's Cafe...
you don't really hear about that in history class.
Yeah.
People were,
in a way station.
Smuggled out through...
Yeah, and people had to sit in this way station in the city for however long, because it looks like some of them are settling in. It doesn't look like, this isn't you're here for a day or two. It looks like some people are there for months, weeks, possibly years, depending on how, I'm not particularly familiar with when refugees started escaping, but even at this point, there's 4 more years left of the war when the movie comes out, right? 3.5, 4 years left of the war. So people are potentially sitting there for years waiting for it, and that is really interesting. It's, to me, and I hate to keep going back to comparing everything to Star Wars, but this was the cantina in a lot of ways. And I kind of wonder, is the cantina based on this? But
Rick's, I think so too.
Because obviously people aren't trapped on Tatooine, but
you know what else I think? I think in Fantastic Beasts, the guy in the bar, I think his name is Rick.
Maybe.
And I think he was also based on that guy because facially he looks like that guy.
Well, the guy that plays the character that you're talking about, his name, I'm totally spacing. It's the guy that played Hellboy. I can't think of his name. Everybody that, yeah. But anyway, he Ron Perlman. That just looks like Ron Perlman turned into a gnome or a troll or whatever he's supposed to be in that. A goblin. It's Ron Perlman's face with a goblin body. So I don't think the look is, but I think that it's very possible that like that if you were to like look into all these, seedy bars where the head guy can get you whatever you need kind of things in movies, that like I would guess that a significant majority will be based on Rick. Because, Rick is, this is, like I said before, I think it's kind of the quintessential, like, badass, like guy that you think isn't going to be a great guy, but is kind of secretly a great guy. And I think he's also the quintessential, like, get you whatever you need kind of guy, as long as you're not a total piece of crap. Because he doesn't really help the Nazis, but he does help, he helps the 50% piece of crap.
His name is Narlac.
Narlac. It's Ron Perlman, though. Anyway.
Yeah, he does kind of look like that character, but...
No, but that's the guy who plays the character, too. Ron Perlman plays the character and just looks like him. That's what I'm saying.
I know, but it kind of also reminds me of Rick.
Oh. Yeah. There was a few things in the movie. One thing that came up really that I thought was really funny was, so most people are familiar with the line, "Here's looking at you, kid," and this, play it again, Sam, even though that's technically a misquote. People think of that as the line, even though it's "play it, Sam." You played it for her, you could play it for me. But that song, and then followed by "Here's looking at you, kid," they say it probably 7 or 8 times. And during this montage trying to show Rick and Ilsa as being in love in Paris before she knows that her husband is actually alive, he says it like 3 or 4 times. And you looked over at me and we're like, how many times is he going to say it? And I was like, I kind of thought that was hilarious, because that is possibly the only imperfection that I could find in the movie. Was it is a little, like, it's not like it's spread out over, it's an hour and 45-minute movie or something like that. Not a very long movie. This line is said a bunch of times throughout, but in that one scene, in the matter of, 7 or 8 minutes, it's probably said 4 times. And the song is kind of looped over and over again the whole time. And so it's the song followed by "Here's looking at you, kid." And
yes.
And you were like, whoa, why does he keep saying that?
Because, it's like, from someone that has never watched the movie, I just didn't expect that, sometimes, you've seen a trailer advertised so many times, and then, you get to the movie, and it's just, it's you hear the joke, parts. And it's and, you've just heard it so many times that you're it's almost like you cringe when you hear it. You're like, why even put it in the movie at this point? If this is the catchphrase for the movie. Yeah. And I kind of felt this way. It's kind of like what I picture, when you watch Breakfast at Tiffany's and then you see Audrey Hepburn, with the long cigarette in that outfit. You're kind of just you just, it's not anything wrong with the movie. It's just that, advertising and, consumerist America, it's after you've seen something 5,000 times, it's just get it away. Yeah. That's what I feel. So, like, I didn't know that they did it that many times in the movie. Like, I'd heard, obviously, I knew that line was from that movie. Right. That's the only way I can explain it. That's, like, how it felt to me personally. I was just like, why is it here 3 times? Like,
no, I understand.
And it was, like, a couple of them were kind of, like, a little, like, they weren't natural.
Right. I don't disagree with you.
Like, it's kind of like they're, like, very, like, rumbly, like, chatting and low, and then all of a sudden it's, like, very, like, loud, like, here's looking at you, kid, and, like, clink, and there's nothing else. Yeah. Like, I don't know, I think that's what it was.
Would it be safe to say...
Interesting thing, and this is probably just a personal pet peeve that no one else will share with me, but I, like, don't like when movies... Like, I'm okay at the movie theaters if things get super loud, and I'm like, okay, fine, like, I'm at the movies, I can appreciate it, depending on the movie, I'm cool with it, but I don't love, like, when, you know, there's, like, super loud sounds in movies sometimes, and this one was the first one that was, like, actually had some, like, volume, like, but even in the loud parts, because, like, a ton of the other ones, like, you even hear, like, explosions or, like, even wings, like, was very quiet, and I think that's just technology. But this one, a couple times, I was like, oh, wow, like, this is loud. And it wasn't like the airplane, it was, like, random times in the movie.
Yeah. Would it be safe to say that Here's Looking at You, Kid was your least favorite part of the movie?
Yes, for sure. I wasn't, like, completely annoyed by it, but I was just like, why are they doing it again? Like, I just didn't get it.
Yeah. So, in the final scenes, when you're seeing the plane that Ilsa and Victor leave on, did that look pretty realistic to you?
I think them going up and down the runway did.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because of security, this is a trivia thing that I read, but because of security, and, you know, heightened security during World War II, they weren't able to shoot at airports at night with actual planes going, because they thought, because there was all these different, you know, I mean, it's technically in California, they were probably worried about, they were shooting in California, but they would probably be worrying more about Japanese forces than Nazis, but they were like, there was some issue, so they weren't able to shoot the planes like that, so what they did was they did forced perspective with, like, a big cardboard cutout. And I read that before we watched the movie, and I was like, the plane's flight didn't look particularly natural, but nothing else would have alerted me to that. So, you know, I just assumed it was, like, some rear projection thing that they do. Like, when they're driving, like, there's a scene behind them. I would have just assumed it was something along those lines.
Yeah. Because... that I was okay with. I read also that they're trying to save that hangar from the movie, and it almost got knocked down either last year or the year before, and now they're gonna, like, try to turn into a restaurant.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. In the Van Nuys airport.
Yeah. It is interesting to watch, like, these movies. The last couple ones have all been shot in California, is doubling for Europe because of the war. You know, we talked about that last week with Mrs. Miniver. Actually, no. I don't know that Mrs. Miniver was shot where that was shot. Then we didn't talk about that too much. It was...
No, How Green Is My Valley.
Yeah. But... it was, that's kind of just interesting that, like, because of the war, this whole, you know, we had to just, everything had to be California.
Yeah. It makes sense.
Yeah. I think, unless you have anything else, I think.
I kind of like it, though, because, I feel like from, like, kind of like since the Hitchcock movie Rebecca, I would say, like, through the, like, 1960s, kind of the golden era for Hollywood. So it's kind of cool that all these were shot there in California.
Yeah.
Like, on those studios.
I don't know if that's considered the golden era, but yeah.
Well, like, for, like, that kind of, like, Hollywood. Like, that's when it was really getting big and, like, the glitz and... I don't know, it's, like, what you think of, like, with old Hollywood.
I think that was, like, coming to an end at this point. Not entirely.
Not entirely.
But, like, the 20s is when like, in the teens, they went to California because of Thomas Edison made it impossible to shoot in the New York, New Jersey area because of patents and because of like thugs, basically. He would have, crack down on people shooting. So they all went to California at that point. Sorry about that. We're just getting a quick drink because my voice is going. What were we just saying?
Just like old Hollywood.
Oh yeah. So after they moved, in the teens, it kind of started booming, and I would say that right as the Oscars were starting was kind of that was the absolute heyday. Like from 27 to the early 30s was the absolute heyday of glitz and glam and red carpets and stuff. And then I think it continued, but it had plateaued for a while.
Yeah.
And I think this is kind of in that plateau. And I think that the decline starts in about probably another 5 to 10 weeks of movie, 5 to 10 years from where we're at now.
Yeah. Like 30s to 50s. I don't know. Just when I picture old Hollywood and
right,
the stuff you see. I don't know.
Yeah. I think we're gonna wrap up for tonight. Unless you have anything else to say. I was looking through, and most of the trivia doesn't seem... Oh, I did want to mention... I'm going to totally space on his my name now. There's an actor in this I gotta look it up because I'm going to space. There's an actor in this that was in the movie M. And he is such an he's only in this movie for a couple minutes, although he's the one who initially has the two passes, or they're not visas, they're the two papers to get out of the country. And it's why is his name? Peter Lorre. And were you paying attention at the beginning when he was like, let me take a sip before I do my impression. He was, Rick, you're the only person who doesn't trust me here, which makes you the only person I do trust. Did you catch that guy at all? He talked like that at the beginning.
So. Yeah.
So he's in this movie. He came to the United States. His first movie in the United States was this movie called M. And he plays this child killer, and they basically hunt him down. And I'm only familiar with him from this movie and M, although I guess he was in the Maltese Falcon, but I don't remember. But he's in these two movies, and he is the inspiration for so many things, I think. The voice sounds like it's like Igor,
Yeah.
I think that the guy in Raiders of the Lost Ark, that creepy dude with the black brim hat that gets the medallion burnt into his hand, I'm pretty sure his portrayal was based on Peter Lorre, and it could have been in Maltese Falcon, which I think is much more closely related, or it's more similar to plot wise, but Peter Lorre is so creepy in these two roles, and he does it in such an iconic way, and I think there's so many things that have been captured from him, and like I said, I don't know if it's specifically him or him in this movie, but it's I wanted to touch on that before we got off for the night.
That's cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so like I said, we're done for this episode. Next week we're going to be talking about Going My Way, and if you want to watch along with us, please feel free to do so, and give us, send us any emails if you have any comments or questions or anything else. We are also we're doing right now up on our website, chocolatediamondmedia.com. If you look into the second or third most recent post, there's a casting call for our short movie for this month. We only have a few more days before we get this done, but we're taking all that submit, basically. So you can check that out. And email us if you have any comments about this stuff, or if you go on and see that casting call and you want to email us footage. Our email address is mikediamond82984@gmail.com. You can always check out our short films and other stuff on chocolatediamondmedia.com. And you can check out my writing on michaelchristophercole.com. We will talk to you next week with Going My Way.